We take a single episode of the science fiction TV series and overanalyze it to within an inch of its life. This is the Fusion Patrol Podcast. Welcome to the discussion.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fusion Patrol. I'm Eugene.
And I'm Ben.
And tonight we are looking at the fantastic journey.
The penultimate episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Episode of the fantastic journey called Riddles, I think.
Yes.
It's like Riddles, yeah. I remember it's Riddle or Riddles, but yeah,
it is Riddles.
Despite the fact that there is only actually one riddle in it, but that's okay. We'll get it in. It's like, our travelers come through another portal, but wait.
Imagine that.
They're not all there. It seems Liana has gone back to the land of the women overthrowing the men and the men being jerks, and generally to help them set up a new form of representative democracy. Or actually, I don't know what kind of government she's setting them up with, but she's helping them set up a
something
government.
Better than what they already had.
I think their cat, Mr. Whiskers, is going to do a better job of setting up a government than what those people are going to come up with on their own. So Varian, Scott, Dr. Willoway, Dr. Willoway, Jonathan Willoway, and Dr. Fred.
Yes.
Meet Genghis Khan, or somebody riding a horse dressed like Genghis Khan, who reads them a riddle about a running man who then runs past them, and also a bit of information about the stones, the keystones that will help them get to Evo Land, or perhaps it was once they get to Evo Land, they need the keystones to get
through to get through or to get home, something like that.
Yeah, so this seems like an important plot complication. So they go after the running guy, and they find a very nice little house, and then they all come back. Because only Varian and Fred were up to running after the guy. And they all come back, and they have a nice evening's dinner, except for Scott, who's kind of seeing hallucinations of old people. And then it seems like our hosts really want to get rid of them, and they know something about the stone, but there's something that terrifies them. And then they keep trying to get rid of them, but they don't try very hard to get rid of them, except that one time they try to kill one of them. And our heroes investigate, and then strange. It's all, yeah. Anyway, so penultimate episode. Mm-hmm. New quest.
New to me, yeah.
A new quest, because now they've got to get these 12 stones. Did I get that right?
To be honest, I didn't know there was actually 12. I thought there was only one.
Well, they definitely said there were 12 stones, but I couldn't tell whether they only needed to get one of the 12 or whether they needed to collect all 12.
I don't know. The riddle was very peculiar.
Yes, it was. It was very peculiar. I didn't think, yeah. And
I think it was written by Nostradamus.
I'm just going to point out right here at this point that if they have to get all 12 of those stones,
oh my word,
how are they going to carry those? But like Starlost, now we have a MacGuffin.
Yeah, we do.
And we have to find something. So
we have a quest. It's not just about
wandering,
getting
aimlessly
home. It's about we have to find something in order to get home.
Yes, I think this is going to take this show in exciting and dynamic new directions, because it's not just about wandering around. Now they have to find these things. So if this episode was new to you, it was new to me, what'd you think?
I had a real, genuine shock when I watched this. I didn't hate it.
Oh, well,
seriously.
Now I've had a real, genuine shock.
I did not hate this episode. I didn't love it.
Okay, well, that's a start.
But I was really expecting to just be like Naked Montague, insulted, mad, hate this thing, it's the worst piece of garbage ever. And, or like how I felt in the previous fantastic journey that we did. And I didn't feel that way. And I was actually surprised by that.
Okay, I can take that. I felt this episode was very meh.
I would agree with that. It is meh, but go on, please.
Yeah. So for the most part, we had the people kind of investigating a mystery. Now, here's a question for you. Liana, or the actress who plays Liana, was, I'm going to put this in air quotes, sick.
Yeah, I heard that before.
And she did not make this episode because she was, air quotes, sick. And I can't help thinking back to Belinda J. Montgomery in Man from Atlantis, who was sick. For an episode or two, and then was just gone altogether. I have no idea. Everything I've read said she was sick. She was sick.
Maybe she really was.
Maybe she really was.
I mean, it's very possible.
2 weeks of being so sick you couldn't come into work, which is probably more like 4 weeks of work on the TV show.
Well, if you've got plague,
yeah, or perhaps Mr. Whiskers got, yeah. How rotten of them to, just because the actress is ill, that means now Mr. Whiskers doesn't get his part in the show, and that means that his handlers and his agent don't get their cut for this. So I think that's unfair. I think they should have let Scott have Mr. Whiskers for this episode. But anyway.
Well, they did talk about Mr. Whiskers.
They did talk about him. I don't think that rates a residual, though.
No, it doesn't.
Because I'm sure they're getting a lot of residuals after.
Oh, I'm sure they are. With all the airplay this thing's getting
on YouTube and stuff. I mean,
yeah. And with us talking about it too,
I know we've pushed the dial up 10 at least.
Yeah, there's little ka-ching ka-ching going into those coffers.
So my question is, if they'd had Leanna in this episode, where the heck would they have shoehorned her? Did they not have enough things with Willoway going this way into the tunnel and Fred and Scott going that way into the tunnel and Varian going into the tunnel this other way? Did they not? Would they have had yet another place where they could have gone into the tunnel for Leanna and Mr. Whiskers so that they could have brought this together? Or would she been paired up with Willoway or Varian or something?
That is really hard to say. I mean, they even address that in terms of the story narrative as to what Leanna might have experienced had she been along for the ride.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What would have Leanna thought of? It's like, did you do that just because the writer who originally wrote this had this really cool idea for this thing to do about Atlantis, and he just didn't want to lose that idea when he had to blackline her out of the script? It's like, well, I came up with that great Atlantis idea. Let's just mention it so that they know it's mine.
Maybe.
It was odd when they mentioned that at the end. That was strange, because I don't think. Okay, for our listeners who didn't in the recap, they're towards the end of this episode when they're trying to get when they have finally possession of the stone is testing them, and it's basically showing them their fears, their nightmares. Varians is falling on bad wire work in a black pit. Willoway's is the one that makes sense. He's not good in claustrophobic small spaces, which he fortunately says as he steps into the closet just before it becomes claustrophobic. Varian's the falling. Scott has a perfectly logical nightmare fear that his mom just doesn't know who he is. Okay, yeah. That's perhaps a little less than terrifying stuff of nightmares, but all right, we'll give it that. And for some reason, Fred's fear is that his hands are joined together.
Well, I think it's supposed to be a representation of, I can't operate, I cannot perform my skill,
my hands are tied,
my hands are tied. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be that. And
that's what I think it merely was. It may have been a slightly cheesy manifestation of his worst fear, but I think that's what it was supposed to be. That symbolically his hands would be tied.
So they get free of these things, and they all then don't talk about them.
They don't share.
But they have to share Leanna's.
Well, the one Willoway shares his.
Did he? I don't remember exactly.
When he finally comes out, he says, "You wouldn't believe what just happened to me. Where were you? I was in a closet and blah, blah." And they say, yeah, whatever, let's go.
Yeah, so the fact that they're more interested, Scott's like, well, I wonder what Leanna's would be, instead of saying, gosh, Varian, what was yours? Or, gosh, Fred, what was yours? Unnatural.
Yeah.
Unnatural.
Maybe they shared off camera.
It could be.
It's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, so we're in this house. We've got these people. We've got two people who are, once again...
Kedron and Krista. And Kedron is our our running man.
Our running man. He is... they're aliens from another planet. Isn't it amazing? I was thinking about this the other day. So we have the original pilot where they were supposed to be going through time zones on Earth, right?
Yes.
But the early audiences or test audience or whatever the network put this through didn't like that. And so they said, let's stick with the futuristic stuff and let's make this Indian guy a futuristic guy or something. And at least that's the way it feels. So now they've got this man from the future. That means basically that they're probably never going to do any stories between 1979 and Varian's time, because that's this sort of known period of history that he would be. So they had to. I feel like maybe they had to stretch further. Like, would they come from the future of Varian, or how do we make them unknown to him?
Well, Varian.
So they make them all aliens. Virtually everybody we run across has been aliens.
Yeah. As far as Varian goes, this one has always been just a major point of contention for me. And that is the fact that here's this guy from the 23rd century. He crashes on the island at a time that is sort of in sync with the time of Queen Elizabeth.
And
that's where his spaceship is.
Or next to it. It's in the next
right next to it. But I can't imagine that the time zones would have varied that much. That many hundreds of years. So here he is. He's got his ship in this one zone, unless he dragged it.
Well,
do you see where I'm going with this? How can a guy from the 23rd century end up in a time zone that is not 23rd century?
I don't think that.
Or did he? Or when he passed through the cloud, it just deposited him there?
Yeah, when you pass through the cloud, it just deposits you somewhere. I think that's what it is. I don't know that our intrepid travelers, when they arrived by boat, were on the shore in 1979. They were just somewhere. I mean, the shore probably looks pretty much the same in 1979 and 1579 and 4779, and we'll never know. We'll never know where they were. We just know that you can't get out that way.
Right. Okay. So I can accept that.
So yeah, where these people are. For all we know, the space aliens might be landing in the year 10,000 BC, but we go into their zone. It's 10,000 BC. There's just plants, animals, and these aliens, and you think, oh, we're in the future, but we're not. No, there's no logical sense to these time zones, and they're all aliens. Anyway, I mean, I think they're all aliens.
Except for the funhouse.
Okay, that was a ancient Greek, right? Mm-hmm. Magician.
Yeah, except for funhouse.
And maybe the Greeky people. The boys. Alpha through Theta or whatever.
No, they were from another planet.
I thought that they said...
Because they showed a spaceship, remember?
Wasn't that the boy... That was the boy from John Saxon's episode that showed the spaceship. Remember Alpha and Theta, they said we're from the United States, and he said, well, we've heard of this place. And
they're all blurring together.
Yeah, they're all blurring together. It's almost as if there's no majorly distinguishing feature between.
Well, then I would agree. The society with all the boys, that would have been a derivative of Greek.
European future society.
Yeah, so you got two zones then, where we have the three, if you want to include the one with the pirates.
Yeah,
so there's three.
Yeah, some are. Yeah, Atlanteum probably was Earth, or not aliens, but nonetheless. So we've got
all these
aliens.
others. Yeah, they're all alien because it's the only thing that's going to make things interesting for the viewer, and that's been a really, really bad gimmick. Doesn't sustain very well, in my opinion.
So these aliens, their motivation is that they don't want to have gray hair.
They want to be young and pretty for the rest of their lives.
But they know they can't because of the stone. So, because they were told they can't keep the stone. So, I was really having trouble with this.
Well, there are aspects to this story that just really do bother me. I'll go ahead and say what I liked most of all was when they first started exploring and they find the Cave of Echoes, or the Hall of Echoes, as I think is what they
call it, the Hall of Echoes, even though it's obviously a cave.
It's a cave made of aluminum foil.
Yes, I wanted to say that. Darn it, I wanted to mention that. So, and this time I paid attention. It was brought up on a post by Mr. Iguana, and we got that this time for sure. I know who it was. That the temple in An Act of Love was like covered in aluminum foil.
Oh, yeah, I noticed.
I did not notice that.
I did catch it.
I totally did not see the aluminum foil. We hit the Hall of Echoes, and it was just like aluminum foil as far as the eye could see. I said, "I'm very proud of myself. I have spotted the aluminum foil this time."
Yes, lots of aluminum foil in the Hall of Echoes. There was a lot of weirdness going on. We see Willoway get trapped in what I think is supposed to be an ice barrier, but it's not really made all that clear.
Yeah, we got to get him out of there real quick or he'll freeze to death. I think he's dead already, Jim.
Yeah. Might as well start playing taps. But still, what's happening to him? You've got Kedron or old Kedron popping up, which is a callback to what Scott saw. So what I was getting out of this is they were really trying to build some. It felt like to me that they were building a spooky story. And maybe if I had seen this before, I would look at this with more cynical eyes. It's very possible, because that's what I've done with the previous episodes. But never having seen this one before, all I got was that they were really trying to go for something that was very almost feeling supernatural, which in a way was kind of cool, because that reminded me of the pilot when they were all on the boat. And they started hearing voices as they were sailing towards the cloud, and the bells began to ring, and there was just all this noise that was just filling the air. It was definitely they were definitely trying to go for a scare factor.
There was a point in this where there was like voices, wasn't there?
Yeah,
can't remember why, but
and then another point we see Willoway's torch just blow right out.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
not the candle on the wall next to him.
No. So there are some strange things happening here. Given that I felt like they were trying to go for something that felt more nightmarish, I found it rather intriguing. It was the explanations, the MacGuffins in this, that really made any kind of grounds that this episode may have gained just really fall flat.
You see, we come from a planet that values youth. And one day on one of our trips, Kendra got a gray hair, and we could never go home again.
Yeah, I heard that. I thought, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Well, the other part that really bothered me was these nightmares, as you pointed out in the synopsis. These were all things that were manifestations of the stone. It was testing them. And then what I come back with is, well, then why do we have Kedron and Krista? Because now they're pointless. Really,
yes.
If you think about it, they are rather irrelevant to this entire story except to add a spook factor. Now, if they had been behind all of these nightmares and manifestations because they wished to keep the stone, okay, that might... I mean, you need to tweak the story here and there.
They were behind trying to kill Scott on the horse.
Well, they were trying to scare them. What they were trying to do. I mean, they were all about trying to scare them away.
So our travelers take the stone, and the stone tests them with their worst fears. But Kendron and Chrysalis, or whatever her name is, Krista, they get the stone, and instead the stone grants them what they want to see, not their worst nightmare.
Yeah, there's a certain inconsistency to that. Maybe they already passed the test. Maybe the stone tested them, and this is their reward. I don't know.
Well, see,
it's a bad
reward
MacGuffin.
is in the given. In the giving, not the given.
True.
In the giving.
It's in the reward is in the giving.
So I'm going to give you the stone back. Nope, we can't take it. Well, then I haven't given you the stone back, so I don't get the thing because I didn't give it to you, so I didn't fulfill that don't think offer. It was, yeah.
Well, I understand what they were trying to say there. I mean, even Varian is offering to give the stone back.
I figured at the end, Varian would literally give them the stone back. They'd get their youth back, and I don't know, something would happen that would be nice for the travelers.
But instead, what we got was, no, you guys keep the stone, and Kedron and Krista, they look at each other as they really are and discover that they're still in love. You know, that, okay, vanity is all now thrown out the window. Because that was their gift. By giving the stone, they got the gift of no vanity. Is that right?
I thought that it was actually Varian trying to give them the stone.
I really thought he was prepared to give the stone back.
Yeah.
And Scott would have backed him on that one, too.
Well, because when he started to hand it back and they said, no, you keep it, but we've already been given our gift. And then Scott goes, yeah, in the riddly thingy that it said in the giving, we get the better deal. And we did get the better deal. And I'm like, well, I guess you sort of really no, I'm not buying off on that one. So, all right, we'll not pick on that one. So somebody gave somebody something, and it was like a thing. But I figured that Varian would give them the stone, and they would leave without the stone, because, again, if they have to go get 11 more stones the size of that freaking football, they don't have enough backpacks to carry that. Can you picture them shoving 12 of those? Like, all right, well, we got just one more to go, and then we can get back out of Evo Land.
Yeah, well, again, it comes down to, do you need just one stone, or do you need all 12?
Yeah, I don't know.
See, I did not catch that in the riddle, and I'd have to watch that again. Oh,
they
God.
Definitely said they definitely said there were 12 stones.
I
definitely
missed
said
that
there
part.
were 12 stones, but then they said, Kendra, you can find one of the 12 stones. Well, does that mean I need to find one of the 12 stones now, or do I need to find one here and then 11 more elsewhere?
Well,
I didn't get it.
What I did get was that clearly they were on the immediate hunt for one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yes, I never felt there was more than one on the table here. Right.
Yeah, and that's what did Varian say he was an Algonquin or something like that? I don't know what kind
in
of
the first episode. Remember, that was the Indian tribe,
right?
That they knew about the Riddlers apparently back there, because
that's right.
Indians.
The Algonquins knew about these riders who rode from zone to zone, giving riddles to help travelers in their quest for home, I guess.
Not that we've actually seen anybody else in this place trying to find their way home.
Never.
Nobody's interested in going
everybody's
anywhere.
Interested in just staying put.
I've got my zone. Hey, it's not bad here. I gotta say, that place where Kendrick and Krista were was not a bad little zone.
It's not a bad little zone, and I can understand why they'd want to stay there. I mean, their original story actually had more weight to it. It was a very Mark of Gideon type thing about how their planet was overpopulated, and they arrived here and they used the natural resources that were around them, and they built that nice little cottage. And thought, and I loved all the Earth affects to it.
Okay, so all right, then we have to talk about the cottage. I will accept that they were getting older and that the stone was disguising them or giving them the illusion of youth. I'm completely on board with that being a perfectly acceptable use for a magic stone. What I do not understand is if they were living in that house, and that's the impression I get, right? They have their butler.
They were living in there, yeah.
He cooks them food every day. They go about their business. They brush their hair. They go to bed. They sit in the living room. They go out and ride the horses every day. Why, when they lost their illusion, did the house fall to pieces? Surely the house that they were living in, they, were dusting.
Was the stone creating an illusion?
For them, I think so, yes.
Is that really explained?
I thought so. I mean, actually, no, I don't think it was an illusion. I think the stone really was making them young.
I think it really was, too, and I think the stone, at the same time, was keeping the house from falling into entropy.
But don't you think that just by virtue of them living in there and maybe dusting the shelf once in a while and things, and so when the house falls apart, it's got cobwebs all over the place. It's like,
if they had lived in that thing for several thousand years,
well, then
you take the stone, and all of a sudden time is now catching up.
Well, did their horses fall old and die?
Probably. Probably. Yeah.
It was just kind of like, okay, I don't. Yeah, it's the house. I'm done. Sorry.
Well, then let me bring this one thing up.
Let's see if we can find any more continuity problems in this episode.
Well, the one thing that really had me kind of puzzled was Scott. Now, how is it that he had the ability to see through whatever the stone was doing, be it an illusion or actually keeping them young, and was able to see Kedron as he really was, when, of all people, Varian could not?
Okay, I'll take a stab at this.
Eyes of innocence.
The reason he could do it is because being near the stone grants sight, or something like that. So that was part of the riddle. So when you approach the stone, you can see things that you couldn't see.
But what about at the dining room table?
I think the stone was somewhere near them at the...
And yet Scott was the only one?
I don't know. I don't know why Scott. Scott because he's the youngest. Scott's because he's the purest. Scott because he's got the shortest legs and therefore closest to the ground. I really don't know why it singled Scott out, but I think the reason that he could see it had to do with proximity to the stone. I think that, and I think they even said that at one point when he came up and he said, "I've been seeing this thing," and it was like an old man, and then somebody said, "Oh, the riddle about proximity gives you sight." So I mean, they explicitly tied those two together.
I don't think so.
But it was.
I don't.
Well, they definitely said that. When he went up to the room, right? He went up with Fred, and then Fred took him into Varian's room, and he says, "You got to hear this, Scott. Tell him." And Scott said, "Yeah, I'm seeing this thing." And then they recited the first part about the riddle, about giving the three parts about the riddle. There was the part about approaching it or nearing it, and then there was the part of having it, and then the part about giving it. The three separate riddles, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But it was something about seeing.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'd have to watch it again, but it pains me. But I really don't think, I mean, I could be wrong, but I really do not remember there being anything about a proximity to the stone allowing you the luxury.
It's not the word proximity. It's approaching, nearing, something like that.
It was
before you get to the stone.
It was way too allegorical, or not that, but metaphorical.
Here's the part
I thought was a very metaphorical riddle. So to try to even glean the idea, I mean, I cannot pull out of that riddle any idea that proximity might help. I mean, maybe it's there, but I just did not see that.
Here's the part that gets me. And how do we even say this on the podcast? But I'll find a way to say it. It looked like Scott was going to
look like he was having a bad
soil
bowel
his underwear.
Yeah, it looked like he was really trying to clinch.
Terrified, absolutely terrified of an old man who looked exactly like Kendrick in old age makeup. So it's not he didn't even identify that as the same guy sitting in the seat and like, oh, that's sort of him old and him young. Creepy, but
not terrifying.
But not like it was a different old guy sitting there. And I can sort of forgive Scott because he's, all right, I'm going to say it. He's a young, stupid kid. But Willoway and the butler?
Oh,
for crying out loud.
No
Did you see
excuse
Did
for
you
that.
see the butler come in here? What? Oh, was he dressed exactly like me and looked like me, only younger, but not with the old gray baldy hair?
Yes, that was him.
The guy. Oh, he went through that door over there. Oh, okay, thank you. Perhaps I can help you. I know everything he does. It was just like, Willoway. Hello? Has someone handed you the idiot ball?
Yeah, there's no excuse for that. None. As far as Scott's reaction, he has another moment that really bothered me, and that's when Krista is in her room by herself, and she sees herself aging, and she sees the room falling apart. She's crying and whatever. And Scott has gone looking for Willoway, and we're hearing Krista. Clearly
a woman crying.
And
he's going,
Scott keeps saying, Willoway? Is that you? Willoway? And I had to think about this, and I came to the inescapable conclusion that poor Ike Eisenman was given terrible acting directions for those scenes because he had no idea what he was going to be hearing or seeing.
I suppose it's possible he couldn't, that they weren't recording the sound and didn't say, you can hear.
No, that was all Foley. That's done later.
An indiscriminate sound of pain or something.
Right, and he doesn't know.
She doesn't do a good job of doing pain. She does a good job of, I'm crying because I'm going to have gray hair.
Right, so Ike Eisenman, when he's acting out the scene, he's got Scott asking, Willoway, is that you? I mean, so to us, the viewer, it looks ridiculous. but I'm sure that when they were filming it, at least for him, it made a lot of sense. And I would say the same thing about when they were at the dining room table. He was probably given some direction that he saw something that freaked him out.
Yeah,
or that you're going to see something. You're going to see the Kedron, and you're going to see this hideous old man, and they're going to be like together but not together, and they tried to explain it in the best way they knew how, and poor Ike, he acted it the best way he could interpret it, which unfortunately, when the scene was finally put together, badly, I might add.
You didn't tell me they were going to put a picture of a big floppy bunny rabbit in the chair. I'm really upset about that.
There was some other really weird things to it. I mean, like every time we saw old Kedron, he was in a black room.
Well, in that shot, yes, it's true.
And then cut back to young Kedron, he's in the dining room, and it's like, okay, what kind of effect are you trying to create here? And it certainly did not support whatever observation Scott had made. So I think, again, I think poor Ike was just given this direction. This is what you're going to see, so imagine you're seeing this, and you're going to react in this sort of way. And then you finally put it together, and I wouldn't be surprised if I just took a look at the dailies and went, or with a finished product and thought, crap, I look like an idiot.
So I'm going to go back to the room, and you're right. We don't know what sound. Maybe in the script it says an ungodly, painful, moaning or sound of someone in pain or agony or something like that. That then when the actress did her part, sounded like a woman in
it sounded like Krista
crying. So Scott does finally open the door, but I think, and I tried to put myself in his place. I go back to the house. The house is literally falling apart. It's covered in cobwebs. It's the walls cracking and all that stuff. And you hear a woman crying upstairs. My thought would be she's in trouble and needs help.
Go run. Check it out.
That's
my first thought,
mind.
too.
And
instead, he's like, yeah.
Varian, Fred would definitely have done that. I think Willoway even would have done that. And I can't help feeling that Scott would have been even more headstrong about it. Youth runs in where angels fear to tread kind of thing.
Unless the
noise was supposed to be blood-curdling.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the direction is. And given the final product, it does make his motivations very questionable. But I agree. I can't imagine why, if given what we heard, if we had been in Scott's position, or if anybody else, I'll go so far as to say, if Scott had been in Scott's position and heard what we heard, he would have gone running to go find out what's going on.
So here's the other question. If he had opened the door quickly and seen old Krista there, and assuming that he would not be like himself earlier and Willoway and be too stupid to realize that that's Krista, which that would be a problem. But even if it was, he thought it was another old woman that was mysteriously in the house, don't you think his reaction would have been compassionate?
Yeah, absolutely. Krista's the one.
There's a lady sitting in a chair and she's crying, and she's
the only
old.
person.
And you're like, well, what's the matter, old lady? Gosh, things aren't that bad, are they? Gee willikers.
The only person who's got a negative self-image in all of this is Krista.
Yeah,
I mean, you heard her.
Kendrick does too, but
not to her. I would imagine, he probably does as well. He's got his own vanity, but you hear what Krista says. How can my husband look at me in the eye when I am like this, or something to that effect?
That was kind of,
and that's just
distasteful
really
1970s ageism.
Here. Oh, it's terrible, and to me, actually, I found that inexcusable. In all honesty, I really found that inexcusable. But then again, we're talking about a society that does not believe in growing old. That if all of a sudden you start growing old, you are exiled.
Or carousel.
Exactly. I mean, it could be a Logan's Run type of thing. Who knows? So,
hey,
are they runners?
And Kendrick started off running.
They're runners.
He's a runner.
He's a runner. Did we ever get a good look at his hand?
No, we did not. Well, I think that was... I think they thought they were being a little too subtle, but we've ferreted it out.
Now the big question is, does Logan's Run actually, the series, tie into this at some point? You told me
yes,
there's an episode. There's an episode about a haunted mansion, didn't you say?
There is an episode about a haunted mansion, yes.
Okay, I think we're onto something
People
here.
staying young forever in this haunted mansion.
Yeah, we're onto something. Yeah, we think the networks are being sly. Hey, we're cleverer.
We have definitely worked out some deeper hidden meaning in these shows.
Yes, just some hidden meanings and messages in these things, yes.
That's the funniest thing I've heard all week. And people just thought this was a bit of lighthearted fun.
Nah, we ferret out the secrets. We're on to you guys. We know.
You're trying to tell us. Actually, I did, of all the things in this episode, and I can't think of what the quote is, but when they plow through this thing and then we get to the end and they look at each other with new eyes.
Oh, it's the thing that Willoway says, yeah.
The path, growing old is the journey, or whatever, that famous quote, which I can't quote, but it's a famous quote. I cannot quote
it either. Yeah, I recognized it and I can't quote it.
Yeah, but it's a great quote, and it's true. And that's was true for some people anyway.
Yeah.
That was like the deepest moment in this entire episode. But
yeah, but at the same time, if you're looking at the central plot, it is still part of the irrelevancy.
Yeah, because the age thing paid no part in the story.
Impact. No, it has no impact.
We don't know what their concern is. We just know they're terrified that it'll come back. What is it? Oh, it's their old age.
Yeah.
Okay.
When Kedron shows up and Krista's, they're after the stone. Oh, we knew this day was going to happen. And he's like, oh my God, what's this stone going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for the first part, we think, okay, there's definitely some kind of really weird connection. And then we get this BS, although I think it's more the stone testing them, and that is the old Kedron, but I don't really think that was Kedron. I think that was just an image saying, oh no, those are parasites, and those like vampires. And what?
No, I thought that was Kedron.
I don't think so. I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that was really the stone playing with their minds.
Well, do you think the stone locked Willoway in?
Oh, that's a good point.
Because I thought it was the old guy, and I mean, he did have some magical powers because he could make rock slides and branches fall. So, and he is an alien from another planet with awesome powers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but it's so out of character for him to really spin off this really weird little story, this lie about who young Kedron and Krista are. And again, it simply adds to the irrelevant pile.
Well, remember last week, the last episodes, whenever that was, that we were in Turnabout, where it's just like, oh, plot complication, let's throw one in. There is still a lot of that in this story. There is just basically killing some time.
It's not a plot complication, it's a plot confusion.
Yeah.
Plot diversion.
In this case, because there isn't enough plot.
No. Well, there wasn't.
There's a stone. You get the stone. Problem solved. Okay, we need to stretch that one out a little bit. All right, there's people who have the stone who don't want you to get the stone. All right, good. Why don't they want you to get the stone? Okay, they need to have a reason. They're afraid of something. Okay, good. I can see them in this writer's room.
I could see that actually happening, and if taken the right direction, it would not have completely fallen in on itself like it does here. Again, if Kedron and Krista had taken a more proactive role in the illusions and nightmares that the travelers were experiencing, if they had been the cause of it, it would have made a heck of a lot more sense, because then you give them a reason for wanting to hold on to the stone, especially if the stone does provide them something. I mean, even if the stone does provide them youth and immortality and a lovely dwelling place for for all eternity, okay, I can buy that, as long as they're the ones who are involved in trying to scare our travelers away, through the nightmares, Scott not recognizing his mother, Varian falling, things like that. But the moment you change that cause from Kedron and Krista onto the stone, then they become instantly meaningless. That's where the whole thing just derails.
So, yes, I could argue perhaps that it derails at the moment the writer shows up at the beginning. But let's talk about the writer a little bit.
I could say that it derailed from the moment it aired.
Well, that's pretty close to that moment.
I'm talking the pilot.
Oh, well. But there's other rails for it to derail from.
Okay, let's talk about the other rails.
So the writers.
I didn't see who wrote this one.
I didn't either.
Shame on us.
Wrote is such a nebulous term here.
We're heaping way too much high praise on them for that one.
Here we are. I don't know how many episodes in. Let's call it 12. I don't think it is 12, but
I think this is the 11th.
To 11?
I think so.
I don't know how many there are total. So
I think 12.
All right. Well, this is obviously
merely guessing.
11. This is episode N-1, where N is the end of the series.
Yep.
And now we're introducing the concept of the keystones and the writers. Now, I think we've already given it away that there is only the one more episode.
Yeah, with N-1, that pretty much says it.
And I think also we have previously given it away that there is no concluding episode of this series. It died the death that it so desperately deserved. So where would this have gone? Were they setting this up for next year and the year on and the year on for them to be looking for things, or for the writers to come in and give them some clues? And where have the writers been so far? And how often would they have come in? Or would this never, ever happen again?
That is a very good question. You say you have a companion guide or some sort to this series, correct?
No. Like somebody put one of those together.
I thought you. No, I must be thinking of
That's as silly as somebody doing a podcast on it.
Oh God, why would anybody ever want to do that?
I have Blake 7 and stuff like that, but
not for this series.
Series.
That's right.
I ran through some stuff in Starlog, which are available online.
That's what you were talking about. Yeah,
archive.org.
that's right. You'd seen some stuff on Starlog about this series,
which that is awesome. That is utterly. I mean, they're terrible. They're scans and they're hard to read, but it is awesome to be able to go back and relive my childhood.
Relive all those. Yes, I got to admit,
and read those Starlogs, which actually I probably have in the back room. I actually know I had that issue in the back room somewhere, but
I'm not surprised.
But look them up online and see what they were talking about in the show, and see their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations, and then see the crushing failure that they completely and utterly failed to live up to the hype and the promise of the series.
Yeah, because I would like to know. Yeah, I think this is a really good question. What was going on in their minds? Were they
Reefer
afraid
madness.
that maybe the series was in danger, and that by throwing this out, it's like bait or like a carrot, and you have to start chasing after the carrot now? And maybe they thought this was maybe some kind of strange little hope and an insurance policy that the series might get renewed. I mean, I don't know. It does seem very peculiar that they introduce it now, but then again, that it's not. It's not that. I guess it's not that uncommon. We've seen other television shows. They've done that kind of thing where in the 11th hour they introduce some new twist to the series that's going to carry over.
Funny you should say 11th hour, because if this is the 11th episode, then it is the 11th hour. I don't take Star Lost. We have this.
I was actually about to refer to that one.
We have Star Lost, and we have this thing which is fixing the ship. So we've got to go fixing the ship, and that's kind of self-defeating. The heroes can never accomplish that as long as the series continues. So they can never, ever, ever succeed in what they're trying to do, or the show is over. So I think what happens is they come up with that grand idea, and they run a few episodes, and after the 10th time that they write the story like, and once again our heroes fail to succeed in saving the ship, somebody goes, hey, we need to give them a point. We need to give them a point along the line that they can achieve without achieving the final result, so that we can now give them a series of wins and victories. So
give them a little mini goal.
So now their goal is the auxiliary control room, or goal is whatever they happen to find out about these things. And in this case, it's like this new concept of the stones.
I thought it was Oro.
I don't think Oro was. Yeah,
he's on the run.
Yeah, but I mean, the first time he came in, he left. So
I know he's on the run on the arc now.
Well, yes, that's another one that they gave him. But again, they're not going to do anything with that either, are they?
Well, they can't now. The show's over.
Well, even if they had, they're not going to defeat Oro if they set him up to be a running villain. So he's the master now, because the lamest master ever.
We also know that Starlost was very, very good at just forgetting everything that happened in the next episode.
Right. So let's see. Logan's Run had Sanctuary, and did they ever get far enough? No, they never got far enough along to have something along the way. Let's see, other shows like this. Incredible Hulk had the cure that he can never find.
Lost in Space was all about getting home. Time Tunnel was all about getting home. Land of the Giants was all about getting home.
Yeah. And most of those shows didn't get very far except Lost in Space.
Then there's Man from Atlantis, but I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, yeah, he wasn't really trying to get home. I mean, they didn't even know where his home was, so they weren't active searching for that. So that wasn't this pattern of we have this quest.
No.
It wasn't a quest show. But yeah, I think
I can't think of any others.
I can't think of any others, but I know there are others that have introduced these little things along the way so that you can kind of just mark the passing of success so that the heroes aren't complete failures like they are in this show.
Right.
Anyway.
So you give them the stones as a means of little intermediary steps. I didn't mean it that way.
In the 23rd century, all kidney stones are that size.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pass. It's worse than childbirth.
Yes.
But you see the size of that damn thing?
That was
Hell
huge.
Yeah.
That thing was huge. That's what I mean about the whole... It's like two of those in a backpack tops.
I was expecting like a rock.
Yeah.
A little pebble.
Mm-hmm. Little something that they could tuck away and
and that maybe had writing on
pull 12 of them out of their backpack.
I was actually expecting like this little rock that you could hold in your hand that had very peculiar writing on it. And if there are 12, actually I was thinking that with the one, thinking that there was just the one stone necessary, that once they got to Evil Land, they got to whatever, I guess it's a magic portal, I do not know. But they would be able to decipher something there by use of the stone. It would act as some sort of small Rosetta Stone. I wasn't expecting a diamond.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Or a giant quartz. I mean, the thing was huge.
They'll probably use that as a laser emitter at some point.
It probably would be at this point.
Bring out the stone. Or Varian could attach it to the end of his sonic screwdriver and produce harmonic waves to destroy everything. All right. I don't know.
Destroy the entire island.
Everything. Sink it into the ocean.
That's right. So that nobody ever has to get caught in this stupid trap again.
That would be.
And when I mean stupid trap, I mean people having to talk about the show like we are right now.
Well, I don't have anything else in this episode.
Well, the only thing that I've got to say is that, like I said, I did not hate it. It harkened back to some of the ghostly aspects that were present in the early part of the episode. And I really thought that with a better writer and or story editor, it could have been. I think it could have been a really good spooky story if it had been better written. And that I wish it had gone farther and darker, but it didn't. And that they could have really had a good attempt at maybe trying to recreate something that had a really good night gallery feel to it. Because with past episodes, they were really very much rooted in at least they were trying to root it in some sort of, oh God, I'm saying this with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, some sort of scientific reality. Oh man, I had to really burp that one up. And this one was like very much like a ghost story. And when you set the ground rules that this is what you're going to be telling, then kind of all bets are off. And it allows you to go in a lot of different directions. And it didn't necessarily take away from anything that we had before. And like I said, I think that they could have really gone after something that felt like some of the more darker, scarier night galleries. But I feel that at some point, they kind of weaned it out. They tried to then turn it back into something scientific with what the stone was doing, although the stone is, as you said, it's just one gigantic MacGuffin now. And then the whole ridiculousness of Kedron and Krista, that it took away from what I thought could have been a much stronger episode. It was not an utter disaster. I will give them points for trying something which I think was a bit novel. Maybe they tried to go down that road, I think, a little bit with Funhouse, but the execution on that was far worse because of your basic premise. And here, the premise was more obscured, and I wish it had stayed obscured, because once we found out what it was, it kind of became a big disappointment. But other than that, I think it could have been a really good scary story if it had been given a better treatment.
I am going to now blow your mind.
I'm waiting.
Some of the things that you've said here in this podcast are going to really shock you when I go over the writer's IMDb credits for this show. Her name is Catherine Powers.
I know that name.
She's done a number of things under a few different names, married variations of her name. And I mean, as writer, I see 29 credits here. So I'm going to hit a few series she's written for that you may have heard of.
All right.
She's done 4 episodes of Kung Fu back in the 1970s. She did, well, we'll ignore Petrocelli, The Waltons, 8 is Enough. She wrote the future past episode of Logan's Run.
If I saw that, I don't remember it.
I'm not sure which one that one is, but because she's written episodes of Wonder Woman. She's written episodes of Dukes of Hazzard, Charlie's Angels, Flying High, Falcon Crest, Fantasy Island, Airwolf, Star Trek: The Next Generation. She wrote. Are you ready for this one?
Hit me with it.
Take a guess. Pick an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Come on. Go on. Pick
one. God. Catherine Powers?
Think Fantastic Journey quality.
Well, that's what I'm trying to go with, but I keep coming back to the Royale, and I know that was Tracy Torme. So yeah, I'm trying to come up with something that's really a fantastic journey. The problem is that a lot of those really weird ones were written by Brandon Braga.
Of Honor.
Code of Honor? She wrote that?
She wrote past prologue for Deep Space Nine.
That's not too bad.
She wrote at least an episode of Swamp Thing. And she wrote...
Swamp Thing was actually pretty good, the series.
She wrote... it's kind of hard to say here. Multiple episodes of Stargate SG-1. But, and this is the part that will get you, she also wrote 2 other episodes of Fantastic Journey.
Which ones?
Vortex and Atlantium. The first two. The ones that you said were kind of had that spooky feel.
The strongest.
Kind of had that, and so now I think we can safely say that the Riddlers and the Stones were indeed part of the mythos of the island.
It sounds like it.
So she's to blame for this whole thing.
Yeah, but she wrote the stuff that I like the best so far. Because it was it's when it kind of went to that spooky thing that I thought the show worked best. Because consider, culturally speaking, the Bermuda Triangle has always had that supernatural thing to it. It's never when it was a big popular topic in pop culture, it was never about the science. It was always about the mystery, the ghost, the ghostly kind of aspect to it. It was all about, it became a scary story.
It was definitely not about the science.
No. No. So not about the science. So to approach Fantastic Journey with that mindset works better than to try and do it scientifically. And I think even when you look back at the series now and the whatever bad use of science that they tried to inject into the series, it was just so beyond laughable that the only time you could ever come up with any kind of a plot that might be able to stand the test of time, and when I mean test of time, I'm saying like maybe 2 weeks, going into the area of the spooky, of the ghost story, of the supernatural, that seemed to have a better chance of I wouldn't say standing under any kind of scrutiny, but it would rise to the surface a lot better than some of the other episodes that were being tossed out there. Because, as I said, as confusing as Vortex was with the whole ghost aspect of it, I had to admit from a watch, just from a point of view of watching it, it was very atmospheric. And with the green light and the way they were filming it, all you had was just the green light, all these people, it's pitch black all around, so automatically you're creating a sense of great claustrophobia, added to the fact that you've now got these weird sounds and the bells ringing, everything like that. I mean, that's a psychological fear, and it worked to some degree. I mean, I won't say that it worked, but it didn't fail entirely like some of the other things that they've done in this series. And now they've gone back to that. They're trying to come up with a psychological or some kind of episode that plays on psychological fears. And sometimes, when done right, those can be extremely effective. Unfortunately, this one kind of missed the boat. I'll give them, like I said, points for attempting it. It was a really good try at crafting something that could really play on, I wouldn't say primal fears, but could at least make the viewer feel a little uncomfortable in terms of what's going on.
Check something for me, would you? When you rewatch this episode, because obviously you have to now.
Now I got to watch about that damn riddle.
Remember we mentioned at some point during this story there were the voices, kind of like the voices in the
Hall of Echoes?
Was it just in the Hall of Echoes? And now I'm kind of wondering if that didn't accompany the Riddler when he arrived, too, at the beginning.
No, there was just the sound of hooves.
Wasn't there like, I thought I saw horses. Something, then I hear a horse, then there was the noise, and then...
Scotty stops, and he says, I thought I saw a man on a horse, and Willoway scoffs at him. And then Fred's like, well, I don't know, but I hear hooves.
Oh, I thought it was Fred saw it and Scotty heard it, but it doesn't matter.
Maybe it's the other way around, but one saw it and the other one heard the sound of a horse.
But I thought then there was the voices there, too.
No, I only remember the voices in the Hall of Echoes.
That would have been more appropriate, because I think the riddle writers should be accompanied by the weird, ghostly voices that go with this.
Well, I only have to watch like the first 5 minutes or so, and then I'll see.
You know you're going to watch the whole thing again.
Bloody hell no. No, I got better things to do with my life.
Well, and speaking of those, one of them is the final episode of Fantastic Journey.
I can hardly wait.
I have to admit, I'm looking forward to putting this one to rest.
Oh, you and me both. I mean, it was interesting to go down this road, and now to have the opportunity to see these episodes that I never, ever watched. I mean, this one, okay. I really think that had I seen this back when I was 15, that I would have enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed this one a lot. I know that. But last week's, if I had seen that, I probably would have thrown a brick at my television.
Your mom wouldn't have appreciated that.
No, she would not have appreciated that because, exactly. She said, now I can't see that nice lady with her cat anymore.
At least you said cat.
Of course. What did you think I was going to say?
And on that note, Ben, thank you for joining me.
A pleasure.
And listeners, keep those comments coming. And we hope you'll join us all again next time on Fusion Patrol.
Cheers.
Fusion Patrol is a Lone Locust production. Like us, leave us a review on iTunes. Or stop by and visit at our website, fusionpatrol.com. Find us on Facebook or Twitter. Search for Fusion Patrol. Or just drop us a note at feedback@fusionpatrol.com. Our music is Fight the Future by Amber Wolf.